everybody, and welcome back to another All Things M365 Compliance with me, Ryan John Murphy, a Senior Compliance Specialist at Microsoft. And as always, I'm joined by Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Ryan. My name's Nikki Chappell. I'm the Principal Cloud Architect at Cloudway and a Microsoft MVP. So what are we going to be talking about today, Ryan? I think we're going to take a look at what's coming up soon, aren't we?
Yeah, we're doing another What's New and to have a look on the roadmap, and this will cover us for January and February. Since that time, there's been quite a lot that's been put forward for in development, on the roadmap, on the rollout, on the roadmap. But I've picked my favorite 5 from the last couple of months, and Nikki's picked her favorite 4 from the last month. So let's get into it.
Okay. So I shall start. So one of the new things that's coming out, and I haven't actually seen it in any tenants yet because it's in preview, but it's due to come out soon, is an update to the container sensitivity labels. So these are the labels that you add to your Microsoft 365 groups, teams, and sites that control the access permissions. There's 2 new pieces of functionality. The first one is to do with whether you want that team, if it's a private team, to be discoverable. So by default, private teams are not discoverable. So you can search for public teams, but private teams by their nature are private. There's a new switch now in the Teams policies that allows you to say, I want all my private teams to be searchable. So that's not the content, but the names to be searchable. So it's binary, it's off or on. So if you switch that on, then you've got the capability with the sensitivity labels to say, actually, I don't want this one to be discoverable. And the second element is to do with shared channels. Now, with a shared channel, you can invite people from another team, individual members, and those people could be inside or outside of your organization. So the sensitivity label allows you to control, if you're having shared channels, who you can share with. Is it just internal? Are you allowed to have people outside, or just share with teams with the same level of sensitivity? So I think that looks quite good. Definitely worth exploring that when that comes out. So it's in preview now, and potentially that may need you to update your existing container labels.
Yeah, I would expect
Over to you, Ryan.
Yeah, great introduction. I think I really like that from Microsoft, to be honest with you. It gives a lot more control over those groups and sites, those container level labels, if you like, in the background. So from my perspective, as everybody knows, I'm a bit of a e-discovery lover. I've picked out a few e-discovery ones here because they just resonate on the actual changes and maturity of the e-discovery product. And one of them being is feature ID 93268, which is Microsoft Purview e-discovery portal, e-discovery premium. I must emphasize that, e-discovery premium, the hold report. Now, this is something that, specifically from my perspective, being very close to the e-discovery elements and working with a lot of customers with it, hold reports are something that has been asked for quite some time. This is now available, okay? So this will start to be a preview, or this was starting to be a preview in December 2023, and then a rollout in March 2024. This now gives you the ability to understand what data sets are on hold in your environment. Great addition. Simply just go in, run the report, and it comes back with a decent outlook, a decent visual outlook on all those items that are on hold in your environment. Just a quick one. I will share the items that Nikki and I are referring to today, so you can click them in the icon in the Spotify or on YouTube. But back to you, Nikki.
Yeah, so for me, one of my favorite things is records management. One of the bugbears that I've had for a long time is the retention or records label that had the controls when labeled. So if you use that type of label, then you could not go back in the future and change the retention period. So you might say, I want to retain and then delete this content 5 years after it's been labeled. So, and you could never go back and change it. You would have to unlabel it and then put a different label on. You can now go in if you want and amend that label so that mitigates the need to creating lots of labels. So particularly useful when people are using a retention schedule and have got a lot of codes and they're using those codes in the retention label. Regulations and rules change. So you might say, well, actually now I need to change that period. So I think that's really useful.
Yeah.
And the other thing with retention is with Microsoft 365 Archive. So if people don't know what Microsoft 365 Archive is, it's in preview at the moment, but basically it's cold storage for your data. So probably on average, maybe 75% plus of people's data inside SharePoint Online is inactive. And SharePoint storage is hot storage, so therefore it's expensive. And I'm speaking to lots and lots of customers at the moment that are hitting their tenant limit on, they're having to buy more storage. So there is an option if you want, is you can invest in the Microsoft 365 Archive. It's managed through the SharePoint admin portal. You select your sites. Once you've set your Azure subscription up, you can shift them all into Azure. Cold storage, it's cheaper. The good thing is that the Microsoft Purview capability spans across both. So where you've got retention labels, and this is going to be really important, where you've got long-term retention of stuff, do you really want to keep it in SharePoint? If it's retained for 10 years or retained for 20 years, it's there for regulatory purposes. It's never really going to be looked at. All of that now we can move into Azure, and it will inherit, and it will keep all of those retention labels and record management labels. You can also put rules in there. So if you've got the E5 licensing, any automated retention rules, so like events-based retention or anything like that, that would then trigger in there. It also works with disposition. So that if you've got a disposition process, so when retention expires, you want to review it to confirm whether to delete or whether to extend it. Now, the limitation there is it'll have like a URL normally, and you can click on the URL and view the content of the document. Because it's in the Azure Archive, you wouldn't be able to see that piece of content. So that is one limitation if you've got the disposition. But I think for a lot of people, having that Microsoft 365 Archive is really valuable when Purview extends across that as well.
Yeah, really valuable update. And I think that would work well for a plethora of customers that are just using SharePoint as their archiving solution at the moment, if you like, especially when you're having to move items out of mailboxes into SharePoint sites, keep it in the remit of a particular region or a particular department. That then gives you ability to offload that bucket of data into Azure, where you say, Nikki, is less expensive, which is always a good thing, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So another e-discovery one from me. Don't worry, I won't bore you with just e-discovery today, but there's a few ones what I wanted to go through, which I really do think are very important. So the next one being feature ID 171751, and that is essentially review set query report. Now, again, this for me, especially working closely with customers that do massive litigations, even public inquiries and so on and so forth, what this enables you to do is if you go into the review set and you open the keyword KQL, which is a keyword query language operator, and you add a keyword in there, let's say, I don't know, COVID, for example, what that does is it goes through the full review set, for the full data set in the review set, and gives you an item count of how many times it's found that particular item in that review set. Now, that for me specifically helps me as an investigator, or helps you as an investigator, to start understanding where the most of those hits are as well. Okay, so that again gives you the ability to understand and start refining that data set in the review set so much more easier just off that keyword query item count. Next in line, I'll keep going on that one, Nikki, is feature ID 37700. And let me just plug this in 1 second. So this is a data loss prevention one, which I think is a really good one. And me and Nikki were talking about this before we came online. So this is the message attachment contains Exchange Online predicate. So what this actually does now is in the actual conditions of the data loss prevention rule, you now have two additional options or two additional variables that you can select. One is message contains, and the second one is attachment contains. that now rules out the single variable of content contains, or the single condition of content contains. Now, that for me specifically just doesn't go through all the items that are actually in the body and in the attachment. Now you can actually target either the body of the email or the attachment. More often than not, the content contains, from my experiences, and I think you mentioned this before, Nikki, people are wanting that just for the attachment. Okay, so that's there for you now. That will evaluate those two elements, whether it's in the body of the email or an attachment of the email. I'll add back over to you, Nikki.
Okay. So we can't have a What's New session without mentioning that word, Copilot. It's everywhere, isn't it? So
Yes.
from a kind of a compliance viewpoint, we need to understand, how Copilot and AI works. So there's some new capabilities now within Microsoft Purview for Copilot. The first one is there is now an audit log interaction every time a user, an admin, or system administrator on behalf of a user creates a Copilot prompt. So this is called interacted with Copilot. So you can search for that in the unified audit log. So that'll be quite useful, I think, going forward. Now, in addition to that, the audit log, there is a more comprehensive view in eDiscovery. So in eDiscovery, you can actually search for the content of the prompt and the response and any files used in grounding as well. So that's quite useful. So if there is that kind of case that needs to be required and somebody's saying, well, it wasn't me, it was AI that responded, etc., whatever it may be, it is there as well. So the reason how this works is those Copilot interactions are being stored in a hidden folder in your mailbox in a similar way to like your Teams and your Viva Engage messages are. So it's there. So they're the two areas there. There's also communication compliance. There's some new capabilities in there. So you can set out some alerts specifically for Copilot interaction. So this may be to just check that, people are not trying to hunt out your corporate secrets, for example. So we can now monitor that. That will require E5 licenses, communication, compliance as well. And there was another thing, and I have completely forgotten. I remember what it is. The other area within Purview for Copilot is retention. Yeah. Now, I don't like how Microsoft have implemented this. They have bundled in retention for Copilot interactions with your Teams chats. So with the different kind of retention policies, you would have, normally Teams chats, you've got your Teams private channel messages, you've got your ordinary Teams messages, you've got email, you've got SharePoint, you've got OneDrive. I'd have expected to see that separate and had that split, but for whatever reason they've put it in there. So if you've already got retention policies to delete content after X days, and a lot of companies do delete their Teams chat quite quickly, they think they're a liability. Now you will be deleting your Copilot interactions, which might be fine, but you may have other organizations that want to keep their Teams chats longer, particularly if they're less mature and they're not really working in Teams yet. They're still doing those one-to-one and group chats for everything in their business. So, they can't delete them, but they then want to delete those Copilot interactions. You can't split them. So I don't know whether Microsoft will change in the future. So if anybody's from Microsoft in the Purview space, here's my feedback on that.
Yeah, I hope they do, because I've had some feedback from customers that say that just doesn't work for them. They would want to keep those interactions for a lot longer due to legal reasons or due to traceability when it comes to auditing particular breaches or particular Copilot interactions that aren't favorable to the business, as they say. But Teams messages, as you're right, they're usually dropped off within 30, 60, 90 days. Okay, sticking with audit. Okay, we've next got feature ID 182242, which is new Teams logs for Microsoft Purview audit standard users. All right, so this brings to light a number of record items like meeting participant detail, message sent, message listed, meeting details, message updated, chat retrieved, message read, message hosted, content read, chat created, chat updated, chat message created notification, message deleted notification, message updated notification, subscribe to messages, and message hosted content listed. Now, again, having worked in the areas and industries that I've had, this has been a huge ask to have as much traceability and as much auditability, should I say, on Teams. Okay, this also works through into bringing those unified audit logs out with via Graph API into Splunk or Sentinel, specifically when you're having to do investigations. This was one of the letdowns I felt especially if you was in Sentinel running some queries trying to understand what happened. There wasn't that much available to you, but I think this now opens up to a lot more traceability when it comes to Teams and being able to audit activities in Teams. Have you got another one there, Nikki, to go?
Yeah, just to let people know with retention really with the audit log. So if you've just got business premium E3 type of licenses, then the audit logs are now being retained for 180 days. It was 90 days. So that was relatively new coming out. Now, if you've got E5, it's 1 year, unless you get the add-on license, in which case you can retain to up to 10 years. So I think a lot of people that I'm working with seem to think that those retention logs are kept forever. And often with an investigation, etc., it can take quite a long time before things happen and where you want to go searching for. So just think about maybe putting them into Sentinel or Splunk or another system, so you've kind of got that retention of that data.
Yeah, very good point. And we should do a dedicated podcast on that. Actually, I think it'll make a great episode. Okay, last but not least in any way, shape, or form, we have feature ID 171717, and that is administrative unit supports. Now, this is for insider risk management. So this gives you the ability to create those admin units in IRM. Now, I think we mentioned this quite a while back when this was released, but from my own personal perspective, because this was asked of me so much when I was working with clients, I thought I'd just give this another ring of the bell, as they say, because this really does open up insider risk management to a lot more people now and a lot more organizations. This allows you, as with any admin unit, to segment the visibility. Okay, so let's take the general example is German worker councils. If your organization spans into the German region, you can now separate that information out, those are alerting out. Okay, additionally, as I have seen coming from out of the financial services environment, if you have Geneva, Monaco, or any of those types of environments that need to be ring fenced also, I'll put into an admin unit, you can now do that with insider risk management. That is now available for you. The preview started in March 2024 and the rollout will start in June 2024. For anybody that thought that was a blocker in insider risk management, that's now available to you. Go start playing with insider risk management.
And those admin units said that they're not specific for insider risk management. They are available to use across other applications as well. So it's just been really extended into there. So if you're already using administration units, you can then bring that inside.
Yeah. So if you're using them for data loss prevention, or you're using them for sensitivity label policies, you can now use those same admin units within IRM. You can completely segment visibility when it comes to administrative tasks. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Nikki.
Yeah, I think it's something, with multinational companies, you require that capability. So very useful to know that it's kind of expanding out wider across the purview stack.
Yeah.
And I've got another one here. It's the last one really from me, is just to remind people, if anyone is still using the Azure Information Protection add-in for Office, so that's where you get the bar that comes up in your Office documents to apply your sensitivity labels, you're not using that native experience, it is ending on April the 11th. So you need to make that switch now. So Microsoft have been have announced this 10, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago. It's been pushed back a couple of times, I think, the end date, while they're bringing up a native experience. So it had the same features and functionality set as the add-in. So that's really important deadlines there. So April 2024, on the 11th, the unified labeling add-in is retired and is no longer in support. And on May the 1st, 2024, it is being permanently disabled. So you do need to act now and make sure that your unified experience is working okay and that the users are aware of the different experience that they're going to have.
Yeah, great. Good one to catch, because I do know I had some customers on that my previous employer that they was using that for specific file types. So if anybody's listening to this, I'll share, like I said, I'll share the information in the Spotify bio area or in the YouTube bio area of everything that we spoke about today, but specifically that one, because I think that's a very important one that might catch a lot of people out when it is removed.
And just so people know where we're kind of getting this information from, there's kind of 3 key areas to look at. So number 1 is, if you're an admin, go into the message center in your Microsoft 365 admin portal. So that is where things are coming out, normally in the next 30 days, next month, unless it's a major change, and then they're going to give you much longer notice. So that will give you everything to do with Microsoft 365, so you can go in and keyword search it and you can filter it, etc. And that's good. The second area is the Microsoft roadmaps. That's the longer term view. So they were the roadmap item numbers that Ryan was reading at, wasn't it? You were referring to those roadmap items. So
yes,
that's a kind of a more holistic view.
Yeah.
And then the third place that you can go and have a look, that if you like reading the Microsoft Learn documentation, and I find it really, really useful, all the Microsoft Purview Learn information, there is kind of a what's new section in there as well. And it's updated every month, just giving you a key highlight of what is actually coming out and what's gone into sort of public preview. So recommend all those 3 things to keep an eye on.
For sure. And I'll put the roadmap and the message center links also in the bio for Spotify and YouTube. So you could just click on them and basically copy and paste any of the feature ideas that Nikki and I have been talking about today. I don't have any more from my side, Nikki, and I think you mentioned that was your last one. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's it. So I think we're going to get some more activity coming out fairly soon, because we've got Microsoft Ignite coming around the corner. So that's next month. So that's always a time where we get new announcements and things coming out. So we'll do another briefing in a month or 2 months' time, depending on what features and functionality are coming out. But yeah, there's lots and lots of things coming down the horizon on from Microsoft.
There certainly is, and we've got some good podcasts coming up as well. We've got a couple of series podcasts. We've got a couple of people coming on to talk about Copilot again. So stay tuned. We've got a lot coming, not just from a What's New perspective, but from a general podcast. So thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. If you do like the content here, do give us a subscribe. It helps us out a lot more than you would expect. And share, recommend, whatever you can do to help us out. Let other people know that we're here, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye for now.